This is John Luther Casey Jones. Although he was born in Missouri, he spent his childhood years in Casey, Kentucky. And that's how he got the nickname Casey. He went to work for the M&O Railroad when he was only 15 years old. His childhood dream, of course, was to become a train engineer. So as he worked his way up the ladder, his career was spent mostly running out of Jackson, Tennessee, and that's where he met and married Janie Brady. They lived in this house here at 211 West Chester in Jackson. Janie was 16 years old and he was 22. They had 2 boys and 1 girl. Now this sign here is at the Poplar Street Railroad Station in Memphis. Now in 1888, the Illinois Central Railroad became short-handed from a flu epidemic. So Casey moved from the M&O to the IC Railroad at Memphis. And he was later promoted to the prestigious position of passenger train engineer in 1891. The brick on this wall come from that station. He was soon well known for getting the passengers there on time. Now this parking lot is where the station stood. On April the 29th, now this is the picture of the station here. On April the 29th, 1900, Casey and his fireman, Sim Webb, had finished their run from Canton, Mississippi back to Memphis. It was a 188-mile trip. As they pulled into the Poplar Street station around 10 p.m., and they wasn't scheduled to go back to Canton until the next day. However, the regular engineer on train number 1, which was the fast cannonball that was running from Chicago to New Orleans, that engineer got sick. And so they had to have somebody to replace him. Therefore, Casey and Webb had to pull a double run. This was the only time that Casey drove engine 382. Now this run was scheduled to go out at 11:15 that night. Now these rails are still the same rails that the IC uses today. The depot is gone, but the rails are still there. And they're still being used. They were supposed to arrive in Canton at 4:05 a.m. the next morning. Due to delays, however, Casey left at 12:50. He was 95 minutes late behind schedule. When Casey pulled out of the Memphis Poplar Street station, he was determined to make up his time schedule. Now this is Sim Webb, his fireman. Now they made a water stop in Sardis, Mississippi, and another in Grenada. Now, by the time he got to Grenada, he had already made up 55 minutes. Sim said he was running in some spots 80 miles an hour. He made up another 15 minutes on the 25-mile stretch between Grenada and Winona. They say that his watch stopped at 3:52 a.m. on the 30th. It was 1/2 mile north of Vaughan, Mississippi. He was 2 minutes behind schedule at that time. And he had approximately 20 more miles to go to get to Canton. He didn't have a stop in Vaughan, and he was expecting the freight trains to all be sidetracked, as passenger trains always had the right-of-way. We're coming into Vaughan now. There's really not anything left in Vaughan except these two old rundown buildings here. Now, the train depot was straight ahead. Where we turned to the left here, the train depot was sitting right out there. Now I'm just sort of looking around so you can get an idea of what Vaughan looks like today. Now they say that one of these buildings was actually the post office and another, and I think, just a general store. Okay, right over there is where the depot once sat. Now that's looking north down this little road, and half a mile down there is where the accident actually happened. Now I'm going to try and walk over there to where the depot was. Looks like this is a little bridge of some kind here. See those the rails, the tracks right there? That was actually a side track that run behind the depot that they pull trains off for just to do repairs and different things. It's not the main side track, it's the one that run behind the depot. And right here is actually where the depot sat. This is an old picture of the Vaughan depot. Now this is the main track. And we're looking north. Casey Jones would have been coming towards us if he had made it down this far. Now to the right of this track is where the side track actually was, that where they had the train sticking out in the main track that he run into, but there's no signs of it anymore. We're now looking south towards Canton. Now this is the way he would have, if he had made it through Vaughan, this is the way he would have went. I'm going to show you a little map that might give you an idea of just how this is situated. Okay, the red circle down there is the depot. That's where the depot was. And the yellow circle up there is Casey Jones, and he's heading south towards the depot. You can see the side track on the east side of the main line has about 3 or 4 cars that's still out there. And what happened was they intended to get it off the main track because they knew it was coming through, but they had a hose bust, an air hose bust on one of the cars, and they were struggling to try and get it replaced. But when they heard his whistle, they knew it was too late. Now we're now running up the road, trying to get to the actually the site of the crash. Okay, this is the side of it. Look, right here where these three dumpsters are. If you look between these two dumpsters, you'll see a signpost. There's no sign there anymore. It's just the post that's left. They say that people kept stealing the signs. Now, in 1953, when they dedicated this sign here, this is Sim Webb's on the left, and Mrs. Casey Jones is right there on the right. They had 300 people here that day to dedicate this sign. Really, it does seem like a shame that they've let this run down to almost just to grow up and have garbage dumpsters around the location. Now right here is where he hit the end of train number 83 that was partially still out in the main track. Right here. They say the dent into the side of the bank there stayed for years. Now I had to crawl down in this gully here to get on the main track, which I did. Now I'm looking north. Now if we'd have been standing here at 3:52 a.m. on the 30th of April 1900, this is what we could see. We'd see Casey Jones and engine 382 coming directly at us. See the curve in the track up there? Okay, the engineer was sitting on the right hand side, and as he come around this curve, he couldn't see straight. However, his fireman could, because he was on the other side and he looked out. And that's the reason Sim saw the boxcars on the tracks ahead, and he notified Casey of it. So Casey began to throw on the brakes and the horn in order to warn anybody that was still on the boxcars up there to get out of the way. So he did manage to slow the train down from 75 miles an hour down to 35, which actually saved the passengers. If he had hit them at 75 miles an hour, there'd have been a lot of people killed. But only Casey lost his life. 300 feet before they hit the train, he hollered for Sims to jump, which he did. He was knocked out, but his life was saved. Now the flagman run up this track. The flagman off of engine 83 run up this track because he was trying to stop Casey. He knew they was coming through. He says that he run up about 3,000 feet and laid torpedoes. That's things that when you run over them, they would explode. An engineer would know that that was a warning. And then he went on up, he said, from 300 to 500 feet up the track to try and flag them. But Sims said later that they didn't see any flagmen, they didn't hear any torpedoes. Now we're looking south. This is the scene that Casey Jones saw when he was approaching the train. This is the way it looked back then. This is some pictures right after the crash. They say that Casey was found under the cab and that some of the steam from the engine had scalded him. See the whistle sign on the right there? Said it had a W. That's blow your whistle. They carried him back down here to the Vaughan depot, and they say they laid him on a rail cart, and that's where he died. It was 2 years later when a friend of his wrote the song about him. Now this is Casey's wife Janie again, and for years she made appearances all over the country representing her husband. She rode all the trains, and she never paid the fare. They say that she simply handed the conductor a note that says, "I'm Mrs. Casey Jones from Jackson, Tennessee, and I'd like to ride your train." She was never refused. Now they're both buried at the Mount Calvary Cemetery in Jackson. Mrs. Jones never married again, and she always wore black after that. She was 92 years old when she died. And John Luther Casey Jones was 37 years old.